Once the light came into my window, I knew that it wouldn't be long. I started to feel a twitching in my body and my arms moving by themselves, like muscle spasms almost. And then buzzing sound was real steady. It was a kind of fear I can't even explain. Total confusion, anger, what are they doing? And then, of course, why? Why? I tried to scream so somebody could hear me and maybe help me, and I couldn't. There was no sound that would come out. For some reason, I started to say, I'm gonna fight this. I'm not letting them take me. As I grabbed him, I heard in my head, watch out for the mother. And then I let go. I felt something stick me, and it was a burning sensation instantly, to a point where if I moved any muscle, it was like my whole body was on fire. It's weird because they kind of position you the way they want, almost like they can do it with their mind. Once you can't move, they can move you. So as I was levitated off the bed, and I could feel myself moving straight ahead, and I knew straight ahead my dresser was there with a mirror, and it's backed up against the wall. I realized that I was going right through it, and I could see my feet go right through the mirror. And that was the last thing I remember. And then I just blacked out. All of a sudden, I was awake and aware. I noticed a man walking around me, and I looked at him, and he looked at me. He felt familiar to me for some reason. He touched me and was no longer a man. At this point, I asked it, and when I say asked, it's completely telepathic. And you somehow know who it's coming from, and even if there's a group of them. Finally, I asked, after all these years, why are you doing this to me? And he said that they were working on altering my DNA.
demons have been banished to a place called the Agigi, a place where, with their leader Azagthoth, they wait for a celestial event that heralds their coming. For a wizard to venture forth into the pit in safety, he must first sell his soul and remove his name from the stars. These beings, called the Ancient Ones, did incredible evils on the earth, and were cast to the Agigi by the Elder Lords Enki, Anu, Enlil, and Marduk. The Necronomicon speaks of these spheres as if they are wandering. It leads on to the fact that when the fabric of two spheres touches, the beings and objects in those parts of the two universes can interact during this time. If these collisions are rhythmic, it may explain why certain beings can only be invoked on certain nights. Perhaps even the moon's weight may press upon the fabric of space-time, further closing the distance between our plane of existence and another. A world where beings just outside of our sight feed off the etheric energy of man, a world full of beings who live not in the spaces known to man, but in the angles and spaces between. Beings called Maskim, who scavenge, ready to drag away the souls of the dead. Beings who live in timeless kingdoms beneath the earth and seas, and even beings among us, in human disguise. The Necronomicon also tells the tale of a spiritual battle, a tale where dark gods, called the Ancient Ones, or Old Ones, are cast from heaven to the darkest place in the universe, called the Agigi. There they long brood for a revenge against the stars of heaven for a battle long lost, and ever await a celestial event. And when the stars are right, Cthulhu their priest, and Azagthoth their leader, will lead the Ancient Ones out of their prison. Cthulhu, the beast of the apocalypse, will establish his kingdom upon the earth, from which he will lead an army that will bring a war to the front door of God himself. He was awakened by the howl of a wolf close at hand. Then the gray stone began to rise slowly off the ground. He then heard the sound of men approaching and hid behind a bush. Several men in black robes approached the floating stone without fear and began to murmur incantations. Slowly, large serpents, one after the other, rose from the ground beneath the floating stone. Then Alhazred noticed the ground he was hiding on has become wet and the fluid to be blood-like. At the realization that the ground beneath his hiding place has become blood, he reveals his presence to the black-robed men. Casting their ritual into disorder, the mysterious priests begin chasing Alhazred. After running at high speeds for a short while, he eventually falls to the ground and notices that there are none pursuing him. Returning to the site of the stone, he notices that the priests empty robes upon the ground. He uses a stick to investigate the robe, but it appeared as though the priest simply disappeared. He returned to his campground to find the large gray stone lying upon the ground. The large lizards were gone, and several empty black robes strewn around the campsite. Symbols on the gray stone, however, were glowing. From there, step by step, Abdul Alhazred began to wander and dabble further and further into the occult.
You'll hear this interview. She said one night, it wasn't on base, they were here in Los Angeles somewhere, and she said that her mom and dad were going next door to a party next door, and she asked her dad if she could stay, and she was like 13, 14 years old, and he said no, absolutely not. So she talked to her mother, and the mother talked to the father, and got him to agree that she could stay home. And so she said, so for the first time in her life, she was actually going to be alone in the house by herself. And she said, so she was in her bedroom, she said, combing her hair, and she had a mirror that she could see her closet. And the closet had French doors. And she said they were closed, partially closed, and it wasn't too well lit in the room. She said she was combing her hair, looking at the closet door, and all of a sudden the closet door opened up, and a reptile alien stepped out. And she said he had to bend down to get under the header, and he stood up. She said it was a full-grown man, extremely muscular, but it was a reptile body, reptile alien head. And she said this thing looked at me, and I'm looking at it in the mirror. And she said he started moving toward me without moving his legs. He was just floating toward her, slowly. And she said, I felt like it was like coming up on a fly. He was, grab you quick. And she said she jumped up and screamed and ran down the hallway, ran into the bathroom, locked the door, opened the window, and started screaming. Of course, everybody in the neighborhood heard. She said, and when I heard, and this reptile alien, she said, came down the hallway, and I could feel that him walking because he was so heavy. And he was scraping on the door, growling like a dinosaur growl, scraping on the door. And she said, then when our father and the neighbors come running up, they opened the door. When they come running up, they were yelling outside. This reptile alien ran back down the hallway into her bedroom and disappeared. She said when her father came in, the bathroom door was just ripped. And obviously, the father said he was not going to hurt her, but it was a message. And he said, that's why I never wanted her to stay alone. Because these aliens have told us, the Air Force, that you keep poking your nose into our business. Every time something happens, you come out and poke your nose. So we just want you to know, the next time something happens and you poke your nose into our business, while you're out here poking your nose into our business, some of us are going to come visit your daughter. So you need to stay home and stay out of our business. And so he said, so that's why they always had military around anytime he left. And so when she was telling me this story about other reptile aliens, and of course I've heard it from so many legitimately important people, I have to believe that there is something to this story. I have personally not seen one, but I don't want to. But I've seen enough to know that there are life forms on this earth which are not from here. I've already seen too much to know that. My experiences have been extraordinary, as I said. 36 major experiences I've had in my life where I've dealt with other world phenomena.